Good morning, everyone. I hope that this finds you safe, well, and excited about the weekend. I hope you enjoyed my post with the beaver. the Let's see if I can do it. I'm not a very good whistler. Usually, I'm better whistler than that. The little sound at the beginning of those Hinterland Who's Who video are one of those sounds or things that any child who watched CBC TV in the 1970s, maybe 1980s, anyone will remember the Hinterland Who's Who. They were an iconic short television video that CBC once played. So I hope you enjoyed seeing pictures of the beaver. I was on a walk recently in Nanoose Bay and saw some trees that had been cut down by a beaver. You can always tell when a tree has been cut down by a beaver because the tree stump, the what's left of the tree, will have it'll look like a pencil. I don't know. It'll be all sharpened, and you can see roughly cut into a point. That's how the beaver cuts trees down, by chewing on them. And I saw this and I thought, oh, good, there are beavers on Vancouver Island. So that's very exciting. I also posted a historical video with Canadian prime ministers, a short little bit of video by each prime minister, from Prime Minister Borden until today. And the reason that Prime Minister Borden, who was Prime Minister from 1911 to 1919, 100 years ago, is the first Prime Minister in that video, is that before him, with Prime Minister Laurier and Prime Minister MacDonald, there were no TV cameras or film recorders or voice recorders. So Borden, Prime Minister Borden, is the first Prime Minister, not of Canada, but the first Prime Minister who was Prime Minister when they could record a video, a film, or speaking. So I hope you enjoyed seeing some of Canada's prime ministers. You might recognize the more recent ones. Prime Minister Harper, who was the prime minister before Justin Trudeau. Perhaps you remember some other recent prime ministers. Older prime ministers, Prime Minister Pearson was on the $50 bill. So if you have a $50 bill, Prime Minister Pearson was on that bill. And I think Prime Minister Borden is on the $100 bill. But they change those all the time. So, and I don't see much cash money now. But check your if you have a 50 and if you have a 100 and you see a strange looking man on them, the $50 bill is probably Prime Minister Pearson. The $100 bill is probably Prime Minister Borden. So I hope you enjoyed those two. Maybe we will talk a little bit more. We talked a little bit Thursday on government vocabulary. We will talk more about that on Monday and Tuesday. Today, I wanted to reintroduce you to these terms because next week is our last week of class, and I thought it would be good if we did some assessments using some of the language and topics that we have studied so far about Canada. And I think this will be one of them that we'll have a little bit of information about because they are not new ideas for you. Modals of advice: should, ought to, and had better. This is a good video. It's about 7 minutes. Watch the video, write down the information that is in the video about examples. When do you use should and ought and had better, and what the difference is between these modals, because there is a small difference in meaning. Should and ought, as you will see, are very similar. Had better has a little bit different meaning. So watch the video and see what you think about that. Now, below in my introduction to today's lesson, you can read this. For this weekend, your focus will be on practicing conditionals. So a few people had said they needed a little more practice on those if sentences. So I posted a couple of new worksheets where you can practice using conditionals. And this video on advice, should, ought to, and had better. Because we will use these conditionals next week when we do our speaking. We are going to do a little speaking assessment next week. And we are going to do a little writing assessment next week. So we will use these conditionals during that, and also modals of advice. For today, be sure that you like at least 2 posts, that you make at least 2 comments, that you try the quiz that comes with the video. That's how you gain credit for completing the exercises. And the government says you have to do all the exercises and the work in order to have assessments and to continue to come to class. So try that. But I wanted to just put this question out there to get us thinking a little bit about assessments. I wanted to see if you can think about this. Do you have any friends and family in your home country that you still talk to? And what kind of questions do they ask you about Canada? It's very interesting. My family in Ukraine were separated for about 40 years. And when I visited relatives, their questions were very interesting. They, of course, had never been to Canada, only saw things on television and so on about Canada. And they were very much worried about wild animals. And they would say, how safe is it in Canada? Are there a lot of wild animals, bears and cougars and animals that attack people? And I was curious about this, but in Ukraine, much of the information they have about Canada is about its nature, about the animals that live in Canada, the wildlife. And so they have this picture in their mind that everywhere you go, there are wild animals that can attack people. So it's quite interesting. What do your friends and family want to know about Canada? Okay. Now, going back to today's work. Whoops, that's not what I want. After you watch this video, there's a couple of exercises. This one gives you the rules, again, that you can read about should, ought, and had better. and then some practice. And then this second one, I'm not a very big fan of the video that goes with this exercise. It's not the best video, but feel free to watch the video. And there's this activity about the video. You can try that. But like I said, I'm not a big fan. I'm not very happy with this video. If I could change this, I would take it out. But it does have another worksheet with these modals that we like. Need to, see right there. Oh, wow, this is neat. Ought to, should, had better. These are the modals here, these ones that we use. So it gives you these again, and then you can try the exercise. Now, quite a few people posted questions posted comments that they would like a little bit more practice of conditionals. So I put a couple of exercises. This one is a little bit challenging. It focuses on types 1 and 2. So of course we looked at 3 types of conditional, the 0, the 1, and the 2. This exercise is on type 1 and type 2. So try that one. And the second one, there's 2 of them there. So you can try those. Now, one of the last things that you'll have on today's lesson is this reading. It looks a little difficult, but one of the topics when we talked about learning about Canada, one of the things that people wanted to learn about was taxes, and we are going to talk about taxes and Canadian government. The other one that some people wanted to learn more about was the citizenship test, so we're going to practice a little bit about citizenship and Canadian citizenship. But also social custom. So one topic that has come up is Canadians and how open they are, how private they are, how difficult sometimes it is to really get to know Canadians, that on the surface, most Canadians are very friendly, very welcoming, very kind, but it's hard to really get close to them and their families. So one of the ways we're going to start talking about social custom, let's look at some conversation. What are some good ways to have conversation, to keep conversation going? What are good conversation topics? What are bad conversation topics? What are good social customs? What are bad social customs? For today, I'm going to ask you to read this about conversation. And as you can see here, it says, keeping a conversation going. This is a little idiom or usage. When they say keeping a conversation going, it means trying to get the talking to last longer. And we can use going in this way. To keep something going means to make it last longer. Here are some tips or technique. You see they use this little bit larger word technique to take the place of tip or advice. Read this information. We'll talk a little bit about this. There's a comment question. Are any of these conversation tips or techniques that you've used before? Are any of them new? And that is one of the things you can comment on. So read this, try this. Next Monday, I'm going to focus on taxes and government, and a little bit about social custom and practice listening. And on Tuesday, we'll spend some more time talking about government vocabulary, social custom as well. I hope you have a good weekend.